Alright, this is my review for Ghost Storm, the sci-fi original movie that premiered last night. And, I don't have a lot to say about this one. This is probably going to be a short review. This movie didn't have a lot to it. I mean, there's nothing that really stood out. I wouldn't say this is necessarily a bad movie. It's just kind of boring. It didn't work with what it had. It had potential. Okay, so here's the plot. It's a movie about this town that had like a mass suicide. You later find out it was actually murders, but I don't see why that's such a twist. So I'm just gonna spoil that right away. But there's just a mass killing, and an electrical storm passes by, and because spirits like were in like the paranormal field, I've known this for a while, but like well, for the movie's sake, we'll just say the ghosts can feed off of electricity, and so like all the spirits combine together and form this like cloud thing, and that's what the movie does. The cloud attacks people and turns them into dust, and that's about it. There's nothing really surprising about this movie. It didn't do a lot, and it could have like gone into dark territory with like the guy who led it was a priest that started the killings, and it never really did anything. Like the as in depth as it went with the story behind it is saying that like it was using a pure soul, someone who was like innocent in the whole thing, that was like powering the storm, but I don't really get it. As far as everything else goes, I mean it was fine. It just didn't make it interesting. Like the acting was fine, except like the lead, I forget his name, but the lead actor, it got better as he went on, but like in the beginning it seemed like he was trying to be way more dramatic than the scenes actually called for. Like he'd arrive at some place and be like, "What's going on here? We don't have a lot of time." Just I don't know. But yeah, the acting was fine, but I mean, they didn't act to the point. They didn't build character relationships well enough for me to care about any of the characters. And the dialogue, there's nothing really I remember about the dialogue. The dialogue just was like lines to pass the movie by, just to tell what the story was. Not much humor or interesting the monologues, nothing going on with that department. The effects were fine. I mean, they're pretty good for like a disaster movie. I mean, there wasn't a lot of destruction, but I mean, it was just basically the effects were a storm cloud, a bunch of smoke, dust, fog type of deal. But I mean, it looked fine. It looked like it fit in well with the movie. And then the other effects was people exploding into dust, and that looked fine as well. But I mean, it was the same death every time. Every time someone died, and they'd kill like four people at a time, and the cloud would like surround them, and you're like go through them. They'd turn to dust, and they do it so fast. It's like you never get time to care for a character that you've known when they die. I just wish they'd mix it up, and they did kill characters that you didn't think would need to die or you thought might be important later. And there was one death scene where two characters died at the same time, and it was kind of interesting, at least that one part where like there's this young couple and they didn't want to die. She's like saying, "I don't want to die," so you think, oh, maybe she's not going to die, because usually when characters say they don't want to die, they don't die. Well, at least in the movies I've watched, so I've watched a lot of these movies, but they die anyway, and they're kissing, and she's like turning to dust while they're kissing, and then they like steals his soul. I don't know. The cloud will either like go through them and they'll just turn to dust, or it will like use like electrical forces and pull their soul out, and then they'll turn to dust. It's completely random when it will do which. Doesn't matter who it's doing it to. One thing this I will give this movie credit for is it had pretty good transitions, better than a lot of other of these low budget films where it would know when it's appropriate to like crossfade between two clips, and like when it'd be cool to do like audio overlaying or whatever you call it when like the audio from the last scene is still playing over the new scene. So this movie had nice flow. It just didn't keep me engaged really well. I just didn't. It's not a movie I'd choose to see again. I mean, this movie just needed more weirdness. I mean, there was one thing that was kind of interesting, but it didn't explain it. It's like it might have explained it in a brief moment, but it was saying like the girl was who was a character that like was the main character, so she needed to survive, so they had to give her an excuse to survive. So the cloud, like pretty much every time the cloud gets in something, people die immediately. But the cloud gets into the house where she's at, and she can't escape, so she brings out a fire extinguisher and starts spraying the cloud, and the cloud looks like the exact same thing as the foam that comes out of fire extinguisher, but it doesn't like the fire extinguisher foam stuff, so it retracts and goes out of the house, and she's like, "Oh, it doesn't like." She tells another character, "Oh, it doesn't like fire extinguisher. It went away when I sprayed it." And okay, why? I don't care if it doesn't like the color yellow. Explain it. Why doesn't it like fire extinguisher stuff? I mean, it did explain. It didn't really explain it, but it said like, oh, spirits are known or something. It's either the electricity or the spirits combined are known to not like salt, and so they get like a firefighting team, and they put salt in the water where the fire hose is coming from, and they spray it, and it goes away for a little bit. You know, I mean, I haven't checked the sodium content in a fire extinguisher in a while, but I don't know, there might be something going on there. I don't know why it doesn't like why the spirits don't like salt anyway though. I mean, this movie is directed by Paul Ziller, and he's done some movies I like. They're not some of the best low budget sci-fi movies out there, but some of them are pretty entertaining. I mean, I liked Sea Beast. I think that's one of his best ones he's done. It had a nice story and nice characters and likability to the movie. Good atmosphere. Snakehead Terror had a really good atmosphere, but that movie wasn't that great. It just had really good shots, really good lighting and everything. But he's done other disaster movies too, like Stonehenge Apocalypse. I liked that movie because it had really good ending and really good closure to it. I think he did Baal the Storm God, which this movie kind of reminds me of because it's like a storm with a face, which this I don't know. This movie just it didn't seem like anything fresh for him. He's done it before, I guess, and just wasn't that likable. Just I don't know. I wouldn't recommend this movie if you're looking for something to pass the time. Even it's kind of dull. And there you go. Ghost Storm. Bing bang goodbye.